DJ Wado, of course, the Wado Radio Show with Sporty Music is Ministry. We have a special guest today on this Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. He's the host of Keeping It Real with Al Sharpton, Politics Nation, weekends on MSNBC at 5 p.m., president of the National Action Network, and probably even more important than all those different things, he's a father, he's a child of the King, civil rights activist, Reverend Al Sharpton. Thank you for sitting in with me, sir.
Glad to be here.
Quick question for you. On this King holiday, what would you say is the biggest issue that the nation should be focused on right now?
Well, I think the nation has to be focused on what Dr. King meant and bring it into these times. Too often we praise people in their death and not really deal with what they lived for. Dr. King lived to try to make the word flesh. And by saying that people should not be judged or treated differently by the color of their skin.
Sure.
And today we see that more alive than we've seen in many years since Dr. King was killed.
Yeah.
The fight against DEI,
Yes.
diversity,
Yes.
equity, and inclusion, the firing of the first black president of Harvard University,
Yep.
the ending of affirmative action, the fight on voting rights. So I think that the way to celebrate Dr. King is to continue those fights in our time because the things he fought and got done is at risk.
You've been very vocal about what happened with Dr. Gay at Harvard University. For the people who say, well, this was just a leadership issue, this wasn't a DE&I issue, a diversity, equity, and inclusion issue, what do you say to those people?
Well, then why did Bill Ackman and others that are billionaires that said they were going to withdraw their money from Harvard, why did they say it was a DEI issue? The minute she was forced to resign, they said that's not enough. We need to get rid of the DEI programs.
Yeah.
So it was a DEI issue. Let's remember there were 3 presidents of colleges that went in front of Congress.
Right.
All 3 were women, 2 white, 1 black. One of the whites resigned from University of Pennsylvania, and then they forced Gay to resign. But the only one they mentioned as a DEI issue was Gay, the black woman.
Interesting.
So they made it the issue.
Right.
And I'm only fighting what they created. They thought they could make it DEI and there wouldn't be a response, and we're responding. The last 2 Thursdays, including today, we marched on Ackman. And I find that people don't feel any backlash will continue to move forward.
Sure. Would you sit down with Ackman? I saw he tweeted you the other day.
He tweeted me to sit down and talk about what? Why didn't he sit down before he went after Gay? Why didn't he sit down before he said he was after DEI? So I'm not going to do a photo op.
Sure. I love it. I want to shift gears a little bit. 1950s and 60s, the church, it felt like, was really at the forefront of the civil rights movement. And obviously, you are still at the forefront of the civil rights movement. And there's some others, I'm not saying there's not some others, but it doesn't feel as though it's the same as it was then. Now, I wasn't alive then, so maybe I have a misread on it. But what do we need to do to kind of connect those dots the way that it was?
I think that I grew up in the 60s and 70s, but I admired, even growing up, men like Dr. King, Adam Green, proud ministers. And then even the 70s, when I hit my teens, I became involved in King's organization in the North. The year he died, I was 13. I became youth director of the chapter. The church was at the forefront. But let's be real clear about that. Many churches were not.
That's true.
It was always the select few. Don't forget, Martin Luther King was run out of the National Baptist Convention.
That's how you got progressive, right?
That's why we got progressive. So we don't need all the churches. We need those that believe in a real living gospel to stand up, and the rest will follow. What has happened is you've seen a dwindling of church involvement, as you rightfully say, but you've also seen a dwindling of church attendance because people only come in groves when they're being fed what is going to help them now. We don't need something to prepare us for heaven by and by when the morning comes and nothing sound on the ground while we're around.
Yeah.
If you read the whole Bible,
Yeah.
it's a Bible of God using people in their times to deal with the inequities and inequalities of their time. Moses, second book in the Bible, Exodus, was a slave fight, emancipation of slaves.
Right.
So how do you not be involved in what's going to be in our time? You know, I go to many churches and preach, and sometimes some of the ministers will say to me, you know, we're glad to have you, Reverend Al, but we want you to stay away from that civil rights stuff. Just stay in the book. I said,
They say that to you?
Yeah. I said, okay, what book you got here? Because my book was fighting against slavery and fighting against wicked kingdoms. Nebuchadnezzar and others. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was put in the fiery furnace because they wouldn't bow to the edicts of the king. So I'd had to cut that out. All that's civil rights. Jesus was indicted for stirring up the people.
Right.
He wasn't indicted because he was the Son of God. He was indicted and sentenced to death for stirring up the masses. So either you preach the word or you say, I'm too scared to preach the word and pass the Bible to somebody that's not scared.
That's good. That's good. That's good, Rev. I want to talk about hip hop for a minute. I am a DJ. I know over the years your relationship with hip hop has evolved a little bit, right? I know there's been people in the hip hop community very involved in this fight for justice in recent years. Can you talk a bit about the power of hip hop and just your relationship with the culture?
Hip hop is very powerful. It's changed the culture of the world, not only the country. But it's like electricity. It can enlighten a place, or it can burn it down. It's how you use it.
Sure.
And what I've challenged hip hop is to be positive.
Sure.
Because, you know, a lot of them, well, I'm not a role model. Well, yeah, you are. If you're in public, people are going to emulate you. And, you know, James Brown, the Godfather Soul, is like a father to me, took me under his wing. And James Brown and Aretha Franklin and Sam Cooke and all of them are that. We looked up to them when I was growing up. And then I later became close to them. I did James Brown's funeral. I did Aretha's funeral. I did many of the artists' funerals.
I was with you. I need to say this. I want to remind you of something. You may not remember me. I was with you at the Apollo when you had Reverend Jefferson's choir sing background for James Brown.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yep.
And I think that what hip hop finds themselves doing is when they become a victim of the system, then they call people like me, and I say that's all I was trying to tell you. Because if you allow inequality and racism to exist, it doesn't matter that you got a lot of bling bling and money. They will still come and get you. And I think that where we have some of those that are 10, 15 years younger than me, we communicate a lot now. They're supportive. And a lot of them were very active in Trayvon Martin, George Floyd. And I think they should use their power the way the artists that I was growing up, James Brown, Aretha, and all the Stevie Wonder, they use their power. We're doing this broadcast for your show for Martin Luther King weekend. It was Stevie Wonder that took a song, and it became a national holiday. We were all saying Dr. King should have a holiday. It was when Stevie said, "Happy birthday, Dr. King," and put it in music, that's what made the country bring the holiday. That's the kind of impact hip-hop can have.
I love it. Is there any words that you have for the Christian hip-hop community, the faith-based hip-hop community?
The faith-based hip-hop community ought to not be ashamed of their gospel. Go ahead out there, and it may be challenging, but that's only God preparing you to change the culture.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Reverend Sharpton.
All right.
Let's give a warm Ohio welcome to the Reverend Al Sharpton.